Survive. Chapter 3. The months rolled on, and Martin's transformation from a desperate novice to a seasoned survivalist became apparent in every aspect of his daily life. His hands, once soft and unused to labor, were now calloused and strong. The forest, which had once seemed so intimidating, now felt like an extension of himself. Every morning, Martin woke up with the sun and set about his routine with a sense of purpose and efficiency. He would check his traps, gather firewood, and forage for berries and wild vegetables. His fishing skills had become almost second nature. He could now catch enough fish to keep him well fed without much effort. The taste of fresh fish cooked over an expertly built campfire was something he had come to deeply enjoy. His shelter had evolved into a sturdy, comfortable cabin. It was reinforced with thicker walls, a well-constructed roof that provided excellent insulation. He had built a small fireplace inside, its chimney venting the smoke safely outside, allowing him to stay warm during the colder nights. His small garden had flourished, providing a steady supply of herbs and vegetables that complemented his diet. Martin's small projects kept him busy and his mind sharp. He had learned to tan hides, fashioning them into useful items like clothing and blankets. He had constructed a storage area within his shelter to keep his supply organized and dry. His most ambitious project, however, was preparing for approaching winter. He knew that surviving the colder months would require more than just skill. It would require careful planning and resource management. One of the challenges he faced was preserving food. Fresh fish and game wouldn't last long without proper storage, and he needed a method to keep his supplies fresh for days. He had been experimenting with different techniques, such as smoking and drying meats, but he still needed to perfect his method. One afternoon, Martin was at the stream, catching fish as a part of his daily routine. He had caught several decent-sized fish, and had an idea to keep them fresh by leaving them in the water, attached to his line. He ran back out to his camp to retrieve a container he had fashioned from tree bark, thinking it would help with his preservation experiments. As he hurried back to the stream, a sense of urgency driving him, he was completely unaware of the change in the forest atmosphere. The usual chorus of birds and insects had fallen silent, replaced by an eerie stillness. When he reached the stream, he froze in his tracks. There, by the water, was the creature. It was massive, standing tall, with broad shoulders and a muscular frame covered in thick, dark fur. Its eyes were piercing yellow, set in a face that was a blend of human and beast, part Bigfoot, part werewolf. The creature was engrossed in devouring a fish that Martin had caught, its sharp teeth tearing into the flesh with ease. Martin's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked behind a large tree, his breath shallow and rapid. He watched in a mixture of awe and terror as the beast ate, completely oblivious to his presence. The creature's movements were surprisingly fluid and graceful for its size, each motion deliberate and powerful. For what felt like an eternity, Martin remained hidden, his mind racing. The creature was real, more terrifying than he had ever imagined. Yet it wasn't attacking him or rampaging through his camp. It was simply eating, driven by the same basic need for survival that guided Martin's own actions. Eventually the beast finished its meal, leaving only scraps of fish behind. It lifted its head, sniffing the air cautiously. Martin held his breath, his body tense, but the creature didn't seem to detect him. It turned and lumbered back into the forest, its massive form blending into the shadows until it disappeared completely. Martin waited several minutes after the beast had gone, his muscles aching from tension. Finally, he emerged from his hiding spot, his mind a whirlwind of thought and emotion. He approached the stream cautiously, his eyes scanning the forest for any sign of the creature's return. The remnants of the fish lay scattered on the ground, a stark reminder of what he had just witnessed. Martin collected the scraps and disposed of them, his mind still grappling with the reality of the encounter. Returning to his camp, he sat by the fire, staring into the flames. The beast was real, and it was close. Yet it hadn't harmed him. The encounter had given him a new perspective on his place in the forest. He was not the only one fighting for survival here. He shared this land with creatures that were both wondrous and terrifying. As days passed, Martin continued his preparations for winter with a renewed determination. The creature's presence was a constant reminder of the wilderness and unpredictability of the forest, but it also reinforced his resolve to stay. The forest had become his home, and he would face whatever challenges it presented with the same tenacity that had brought him this far. He would not let fear drive him away. Instead, he would respect the forest and its inhabitants, living alongside them the best he could. And as the first snowflake began to fall, Martin felt a deep sense of peace. He would be ready for whatever lay ahead, confident in his ability to survive and thrive in the untamed world. The first snow came gently, transforming the forest into a silent, white wonderland. Martin watched from the doorway of his shelter as the flakes drifted down, their quiet beauty masking the harsh reality that lay ahead. Winter had arrived, and with it, a new set of challenges. The cold was relentless, seeping into his bones. His once bustling routine now required additional layers of effort to cope with the freezing temperatures and the scarcity of resources. The forest, which had been so abundant during the warmer months, now offered little in way of food. Martin found it difficult to establish a new routine. His garden was buried under a blanket of snow, and the streams were beginning to freeze over, making fishing nearly impossible. He had a small stockpile of dried and smoked fish, but it was dwindling rapidly. Each day, as he counted the remaining pieces, a gnawing fear of starvation grew in the back of his mind. Hunting became an urgent necessity. He had crafted a bow and a set of arrows, using his newfound skill and the materials available to him. It was a crude weapon, but it was all he had. For a week, he practiced tirelessly, his fingers stiff from the cold as he struggled to gain proficiency. His first attempt was disheartening. The arrows flew wide of their marks, and more than once he lost them in the snow. Martin was nothing if not determined. Each failure was a lesson, each missed shot a step towards improvement. He adjusted his aim, refined his technique, and learned to move quietly through the snow-covered forest. Finally, after days of practice, his persistence paid off. He spotted a deer near a clearing, its brown coat standing out against the white landscape. Moving with painstaking caution, Martin nocked an arrow and drew his bowstring back. He held his breath, aimed, and released. The arrow struck true. The deer fell, and Martin felt a surge of relief and triumph. He approached his kill with reverence, understanding the significance of the moment. This was more than just a meal. It was a lifeline, a testament to his resilience and adaptability. Back in his shelter, he worked quickly to butcher the deer, preserving as much meat as possible. He hung strips of it near the fire to dry, knowing that the bounty would sustain him through the toughest days of winter. The hide, too, was a valuable resource, and he began the process of tanning it for future uses. With a renewed sense of purpose, Martin reestablished his routine. The days were short, the nights were long, and he filled his time with productive tasks. He reinforced his shelter further, insulating it against the cold. He set traps for smaller game. He continued to practice his bow, ensuring that he would not go hungry again. The struggle was far from over, but Martin faced each day with the confidence that he had been forged through months of hard work and perseverance. He had become a survivalist specialist, adapting to changing conditions and learning from every challenge. The forest, though harsh and unforgiving in winter, had become his domain. He moved through it with a sense of belonging, his skills honed and his spirit unbroken. The beast, a constant presence in the back of his mind, was a reminder of the wilderness that surrounded him. But Martin no longer saw it as a threat. It was a part of the world that he had come to understand and respect. One night, as he sat by the fire, the warmth and light providing a welcome contrast to the icy darkness outside, Martin reflected on his own journey. He had come to the forest seeking something, a challenge, an escape, perhaps a new beginning. He had found all of that and more. As the fire cracked and the wind howled outside, he felt a deep sense of peace. He had faced the unknown and survived. He had learned to live in harmony with the land, to respect its dangers and cherish its gifts. And he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them. Winter would be long and difficult, but Martin was no longer afraid. He was a part of the forest now, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and as the snow continued to fall, he drifted into a deep, contented sleep, ready to face another day in his wilderness home. That same night, the forest's peaceful silence was broken by a familiar, chilling sound. The heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed through the icy stillness, growing louder as they approached Martin's shelter. He woke with a start, his breath visible in the cold air. The beast was back. Martin sat up, his heart pounding. He had encountered the creature before, but this time it felt different. There was an intensity in the air, a sense of imminent danger. He listened intently, the fire casting flickering shadows on the wall of his shelter. The footsteps stopped right outside his door. Martin held his breath, his body tense with anticipation. He had always thought that if he kept quiet and still, the beast would eventually leave. It had worked before. Why wouldn't it work now? But this time, he was wrong.